let's see.
Hey, and before Mr. Bind comes in, are we all asking questions, or will it just be the administrator?
I'm just observing myself.
So we had some scripted questions. We may need to get Jeff back so we can talk about that behind. But what we did based on y'all's decision is we have the scripted questions. And then once we go through those, we will open it up for any panel questions.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah. Well, I'm here to observe anyway. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. And
okay. Yeah, we're just following that directive from the closed session.
Okay, we are live, and Mr. Bond's coming in.
All righty. How you doing this morning, Mr. Bond?
I don't think he's in yet.
Oh, okay.
He's still joining.
I can't see my wall.
See, look. They were all copied. I'm re-seeing. But yeah, but I'm gonna copy you on it, and then you can just give her a call that it was definitely forwarded. How do I? Yeah. So now there's definitely been, yeah. All right.
So once he connects his audio, he should be good to go.
Additionally, those credentials were resent or being resent from the clerk's office directly to you.
Ms. Rickard, you may want to reach out to Mr. Bond and ask him to connect his audio.
Hello.
Okay, I think we're ready now.
Can y'all hear me? Yep.
We can barely hear you.
Okay. Let's see.
How are you doing this morning, Mr. Bond?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How about yourselves?
Doing well. Awesome to see you again. And we'll start here in about 30 seconds. It's a little toasty in here, so I'm adding a little bit of relief through this fan.
All right.
All righty. Well, I'll go ahead and get started if you're ready.
Yeah, certainly.
Well, listen, first would like to say thank you for putting your name in the hat and agreeing to join us as we search and try to present qualified candidates to the Commission of Augusta by highlighting that we do have members of the Commission who have a strong interest in this role, participating as both observers and providing an opportunity to ask questions. And so the process that we're looking at here is I prepared some scripted questions, which is our process, and may have some follow-ups based on how you answer. And then at the very end, before we allow you to kind of chime in with any questions that you might have, the commission may have additional questions. And so we'll make sure to present those as well. All right.
That sounds good. Yeah.
All right.
Can y'all hear me clearly? I'm holding my phone up, so just making sure y'all got a good audio.
Absolutely. I think we can hear well. If we don't, if the commission could send our IT folks a note to notify us, we'll make adjustments as we go. Well, so I'll tell you, my first question is always kind of the same to executive leaders looking at some of these roles. You know, tell us a little bit about why you have an interest in Augusta and a little bit about your unique background that makes you a good fit for this role.
Certainly. So my interest is that I love water. I grew up skiing, fishing, swimming up in the waterways, the lakes around here. Went into college and ended up going into engineering and majored in ag engineering and minored in soil and water systems. Water has always been a part of my life. As I moved through, I did environmental permitting for small cities and counties. Graduated from the University of Georgia. Let me step back a little bit about my background, then I'll talk a bit about the position as well. Graduated from the University of Georgia with a degree in ag engineering with an emphasis in soil and water systems and another interest in electronics. I graduated from there and then went to Virginia Tech. Spent 2 years in beautiful Blacksburg, Virginia. Out there, I majored in biological systems engineering, and I developed an erosion routine that was built into a planning model to try to improve the capability of our models to predict erosion during our development cycles. And so I got through with that and had a couple of different job choices. At the time, I was going to go get a PhD, and I was going to be a professor. That was my goal. And ended up back at the University of Georgia working for a public-private partnership, a PPP, before they were called PPPs. And so what our goal was, we were a university group, and we had partial funding from the university, but we did work for private consultants, engineering firms around the state for municipalities that needed environmental permitting work for their NPDES permits from the state, but that didn't have the money to hire the really big guys. So we had all of this. We had our own water lab. We had our own equipment. We had specialized expertise, about between 5 and 10 people at any one time in that group. And so we offered this around the state, Fort Valley, Lowndes, Statham, Thomasville, did a variety of these studies all over, and did that for 4 or 5 years with me as the principal modeler and teaching people about geographic information systems and water and learning more about water law rules and regulations in the state of Georgia. About that time, my father got sick. I'm from Augusta. And so as part of that, he was in the ICU at university for about 9 weeks. And we had an issue and thought it was time for us to return home to take care of the family. And so I applied for a position with the utilities department. Ended up starting as a utilities engineer. Obviously loved water, fit right into it. Learned about how the organization worked, executed a lot of projects. Marion owned a water main, Franklin Covenant Church Road water main, a lot of smaller projects we did in-house at that time. Over time, I moved up the organization to Utility Systems Program Manager, where I ran the IT group, the mapping group, and worked to distribute our electronic maps and information out into the field for the operations teams. Did that for a couple of years, and then the assistant director left, and so I applied for that position and got that position. So I was assistant director for engineering for a couple of years. During that time, we acquired Fort Gordon's assets. I had at that time about $100 million of capital underneath me as part of the Benchmark 2010 program. And as part of that, we built water mains all over the county, throughout South Augusta, throughout downtown Augusta. And I also sewered a lot of neighborhoods that traditionally weren't sewered. And so I ran part of the pocket sewer program, Sand Ridge, Farrington, Town and Country, Bel Air Hills. So it worked throughout the city, attended a lot of public meetings, a lot of interactions. I derive a lot of satisfaction from doing that type of work, from delivering products to the citizens from a municipal background and standpoint. So it's something that I tremendously enjoy. And so it just kind of segues in. Unfortunately, when this position came open the way it did, and once it was put out into the public for everybody to have an opportunity to participate and to apply, I wanted to put my hat in the ring in order to take a shot at running the utilities department. I've got extensive experience with all the components of it. I love the business. I love making a difference in the citizens' lives. And I think I'm kind of uniquely situated in that. In the realm of experience I have covers not only private development, public infrastructure and utilities, and obviously stormwater. So my overall goal and group is integration of water as one resource, from it falling out of the sky, distributing to the rivers and creeks, and us treating it, drinking it, and then disposing of it, and using it in a variety of industrial ways. So myself, got a bachelor's degree, got a master's degree. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Georgia and Florida, and I was very close to finishing up my South Carolina PE as well. I am an NPDES ESC Level 2 certified, and I was on the board of Water Reuse Florida, which was a organization in Florida that facilitated and promoted the reuse of treated wastewater for potentially promising and effective reuses. Typically down there it was used for irrigation, but also was used in industrial uses because they have a serious water shortage in that area. And I sat on the board because I worked for Disney World. And because of that, we had a tremendous wide-ranging need for treated water with all of the grounds and the upkeep of those. So I hit a couple other quick points, and y'all can stop me whenever, because if you know
Well,
me,
no, I
will
think
talk.
it's important for folks to, provide, this may be one of the most important parts of the interview, is to make sure, especially in this format, that folks understand the breadth of the actual experience of our high quality candidates. And so I think, you've done a very good job of kind of highlighting that. I've definitely have noted the previous experience at the assistant director level here within our organization, as well as the public-private partnership, your experience in the private sector, which of course brings us a unique view. So thank you for sharing that. Before I go on to the second question though, I do hear a small clicking, so I wanted to allow IT to kind of come in. I believe that everyone has their devices muted. I don't know if you actually have yours muted, or if you're hearing the same clicking that we have, or if you have anything in the background. So I want to give you an opportunity to make some adjustments, because I'm still
Thank you. I just muted my laptop. I do have some neighbors doing yard work, but they've stopped right now, so hopefully that's not it.
Okay. Let's see, Mr. Lewis, if
Donald.
you're still with us, can you check to see what that might be?
Yeah, Mr. Donald, I think it's because Mr. Bond is using the cell phone. Is there any way you can switch to computer audio, the internet audio, instead of calling in? Because your laptop should have a microphone built in.
Yeah, it does. It's just I have issues with the audio over the laptop. So if need be, and honestly, I don't even know on this one how to switch.
In Zoom, it would be, I assume, because you called in on your cell phone, right?
Actually, yeah, I did call in on the cell phone, and I obviously clicked through on that.
So in Zoom, there should be a way to switch audio back to internet audio. And then once that was done, you would be able to hang up your phone. You could try that and see if it's better.
Let's see if I can go to computer audio.
And what we'll do is we'll pause for about 2 minutes to give you the opportunity to do that. And I'll test one thing here as well.
You could also disconnect and reconnect, Mr. Bond. And when you reconnect, just don't call in.
Yeah, let me do that. I
Yeah,
think that's going to be the best. It's not giving me the option on my.
It is pretty distracting noise, so we'd like to clear it up.
Okay. Pardon me. I'll hang up and I'll dial right back in.
Yeah, no problem. We'll pause while you do that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bond, can you say something now and see if that is fixed? Because it looks like you switched audio. Hello? No, can't hear you. What about an office phone or a home phone or any other phone? Or you could try calling back and it may just clear up, Yeah, we can't hear you.
Ain't technology great?
Okay, so say something. Let's see if we can hear you now. No, you're still no audio. You may just want to. Yeah, I think I heard you now. Say it again.
Context menus. Once I got it switched to computer audio, it gave me the option to select my microphone.
Yes, sir. That's way better.
Got it. Thank you very much, Mr. Bond. We appreciate that. You ready to go? We can resume if that works for you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
So I think you just gave some great information regarding your experience, and I think you mentioned the role as assistant director, as well as experience managing the more than $100 million in capital projects at that time. That's a good segue into my next question. Can you describe your experience in preparing department budgets and expenditures as it relates to the established financial goals and objectives set, by the council, the administrator's office, or your organization as a whole, public or private sector? And second part of that question is, how do you, after that budget is prepared, make strategic decisions based on the budget, considering the budget?
Gotcha. So typically what we've done is create a CIP in the short to longer term. And that's one of the things we're looking at: a 5 to 10 year, 0 to 5 year, 5 to 10 year capital improvement program. Additionally, you've got to deal with your renewal and replacement, your extension projects, anything that's coming up where you might be cost sharing with one of your development groups. And so these things all have to be costed and accounted for. I've done that as part of the overall utility budgets. I've done that again here. I've done that for Augusta Engineering. I've done that for Disney World. Additionally, we also put in asset improvement programs. So we put in things in place where you have to go in and say, okay, I know I'm going to have to replace a certain number of my assets on a rolling basis. And that's based on intelligent information. That's not blindly doing it. But we know based on our GIS inventory and our system characterization, our CityWorks data, how much we think is actually faulty that we need to go out there and start to put a program in place for. So you have to have that piece budgeted as well. Also, from a capital standpoint, we're going to say, hey, we know we've got this many dollars. We've got this much coming in through these different sources. It might be from the fort. It might be from revenues. It might be we have to go out for bonds. There's a lot of those things that could be contributing components to the inflow of capital into the system. And we would go in and map out the program to say, this is where we're going to construct projects over the next 5 years. And in doing that, we want to make sure we're systematic so that we don't replace something out of sequence. We don't go too far downstream, too far upstream. If we have capacity or if we have public health issues, a real crisis, we want to make sure we've targeted those. I'm going to make sure we're obviously connecting people to the sanitary sewer system to remove the septic tanks from the system as well. And then as part of that, you go and lay those plans out. So you have to go in and say which ones are the most critical, which ones need to be executed. And I've done that for the city numerous times through 2 bond programs. And we've laid them out, picked out the sizes of the projects, picked demarcation points, and then gone in and said, who would be a good candidate, a good engineering firm to design this for us? Or is it something that's sufficiently small we can handle it in-house? Or do I have a demand services contract where I could say, okay, I'm going to let you go out and replace these 50 manholes, and this is the sequence and order we're going to do it in here. So I'm going to allocate people to it from my side to watch and inspect the work that you do. So I've covered all components of that. And what we typically have done is, you bid them through the city's procurement process. That's the way it operates. And so you really want to know what's the nature of the current market. And my personal experience has been, and currently Constantine works and manages with their own construction firm. And so you try to keep a really good pulse on what the market's doing. So that way you know where your costs are and whether or not you're going to be suddenly paying more for things. Timber right now being an example, though we don't build anything out of it. But when 2008, when Katrina hit and asphalt prices jumped up, and GDOT had to go mark asphalt to an index, these are all the things that occur. And it ate considerable pieces of my budget at the time. And so you have to be accommodative of those. So obviously they have to be prioritized, as we discussed: public health and safety, importance of distribution to the distribution and collection system, age, and where is it at in the overall replacement program? And as you bid those, you look at your overall capital budget and say, now, how am I going to fit this in? Can I do this one this year? Is it going to have to be pushed out? If I have to push it out, can I break it into segments? Are there pieces of it that are known to be bad? And that's all part of just the management of the overall system.
So I think there was one question, one follow-up, and I think I follow, but I want to make sure for the edification of both our commission and their considerations and the public, this experience that you are relaying, it is based on you being either the primary decision maker or a member of the executive decision-making team. So you had the authority and influence to make these strategic decisions. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've done it through all different ranges. I did it as the assistant director. I've done it as a consultant for St. Augustine, where I prioritized for them based on their parameterization as an overload of their workflow, and gave them a capital program of about $20 million they weren't expecting, but they had to develop in order to prevent losing their roadways. And I've done it at Disney World, where we operated on a cash rolling basis. And we had to be accommodative of not only the things that needed to be replaced and things we knew that were problematic in the system, but obviously the overall company's larger goals of delivering entertainment to people and how they were going to expand and grow at the same time. So under a variety of pressures, influences, and requirements, I've done these plans.
Got it. Very good. Thank you very much. So moving on from there, I think that's, Augusta is in a very unique time of transition, like many other cities, but being the second largest city in the state of Georgia, I think decisions impact us more. And our commission having new members and bringing their new vision to fruition has kind of set the stage for where, or is setting the stage for where the city would go next. What would be your first steps in aligning your vision with the commission, the administrator's office, as well as your team members, whether it be senior or the rank and file staff?
Right. So in conversations about this, so my first goal is going to be go talk to my staff. I've got to go see what they're doing, how they're doing it. Obviously, there's been a leadership segue in here over several months. Some of this stuff is going to have carried on. Some of it's going to have stopped because Tom had a vision and a goal, and some of that stops with him. And so we need to go and say, okay, what were you doing? Why were you doing it? What's your goal going forward? And what are you trying to affect? What can I help you do that you're not capable of doing now that you need somebody to help push over the top? Set that program up, then come back in, talk to my mainline people, my assistant directors, see what programs they've got going, what projects they feel are the highest priority, or any limitations that they know about that the other staff would not. And then I think the next piece I would do is go to the other city department directors and communicate with them, because one of the things I foresee in this position is getting rid of any outstanding roadblocks or impediments that may have existed previously so that we're operating together as one unit. And my primary example of that is I don't want to go out and have the TIA road projects be constructed, all this beautiful streetscape happen, and then have a sewer line that's going to collapse underneath it, have to cut all that work. So my goal is to communicate with the other department heads. What do you need? What are you getting? What are you not getting? And then obviously it trickles out to the administration to say, okay, what is your short-term goal? What is your longer-term goal? How does what I'm trying to do help you succeed in that manner? How does it push it forward? What are the pieces that I'm not seeing that you know about from your upper communications that I need to execute? And then how am I going to build a program around those? And this is a philosophical process of bringing everybody together. Obviously, then the commission has individual items that come up to them. They need to convey those, need to get to you, need to get to me. We need to be distributed throughout the system and to the appropriate team or group that would be handling those. Is it as simple as I've got a water main problem on a segment of road, or a sewer problem, or I need to bring water or sewer to an area, or a partnership with somebody where we're going to do a development and we need to cooperate and work together and bring everybody to the table. And so, that's my plan, my process, and that's what I would do in the first 90 days.
And so is it fair to say, in lieu of a top-down approach, it sounds like you're starting from the bottom up, starting with the folks that are closest to service to analyze and then push those things up into your strategy? Is that fair?
That's correct. So with this position, my goal is, or my strategy always has been, talk to operations.
Got it.
because operations runs things. They're on call 24/7. They can make you look fantastic. They can make you look foolish. You can be the best engineer in the world, build the best plant in the world, but unless your operators buy into how it's supposed to work, it's not going to function properly. So I need to know what they're doing, how they're doing it. If there's something I see that needs to be tweaked or turned a little differently, I would try to do that. And I do that through bringing everybody in. I'm not a top-down leader by dictate. But my next goal is to then set the strategy for the department. Let's set the long-term goal. That's what we worked under. We worked under a 10-year capital improvement program. We had a 5-year refresh on it, and we did that so that everybody knew where we were going in the long term. And that is the goal. That's the method I would use.
Understood. And so that actually helps, as we move on to my next inquiry. I think that ties in with this, I guess, bottom-up approach involving the rank and file operations and the end user to a certain extent of your system. How would you manage your senior staff and then evaluate their performance within that system?
So with the senior staff, I think you have to look at what are their objectives in the short term and long term. And I think though this is one of the pieces in looking at the utilities department right now is, I'm going to segue off this a little bit. I'm going to move sideways, but 3 of the 5 people are nearing retirement. And so you need to look at a succession plan. And so I need to also look at what their goals are in the context of what I think the long-term goals are going to be for the utility department. Not only how am I going to backfill them, but what do they have that they might want to finish in their career versus what are some of the things that I see coming in the water industry that they probably are not going to want to tackle? How am I going to bring somebody in to help shadow them or facilitate or work with them and to hopefully be the next person to function in that role? Obviously, from that perspective, I tend to evaluate people based on, are they executing and meeting the overall goals of the organization? So are we distributing and collecting water appropriately? Are we not violating any permits? Are we able to make sure we've got adequate supply and the quality's high and we meet all of our regulatory requirements? So their goals are a little bit different. They're carrying out the executed vision, the plan that I'm looking at, and obviously annual reviews, but that's really, for me, it's more about a weekly meeting and a monthly feedback on how are we conducting the direction we're going, or how are we heading the direction we need to go. And so, I'm pretty straightforward about just sitting down and meeting with the groups that run the day-to-day organization and saying, what are you seeing and what do you need? And that's kind of always been the way I operated. We try to keep the meetings kind of short on a weekly basis because, as you know, any of these meetings can go from information transfer to problem solving. It's for a bunch of technical people. So you need to keep that kind of backed up. But I would do that in order to make sure they have the resources they need to execute what they have to do. And obviously, if they're not executing some component of the organization and the utility, it also reflects on me because I need to be overseeing that. So I plan to basically meet with them on a weekly basis in order to make sure they're moving the right direction. And again, look at a longer term succession plan.
Got it. Understood and received. So I think that, again, these I think we're hitting some of the key areas that I have an interest in, and hopefully the commission and likely our general public as well. We've mentioned kind of identifying how you evaluate certain things. We've also talked about budgeting and some of the things that kind of, I guess, ail Augusta. We have a very long list of capital projects. I'll just use an example. We've got sewer connection access issues that there have been, funding allocated to, but has not fully been resolved. And we've got other, drainage issues and things of that nature that touch engineering as well as our water quality and other activities there. How would you, approach with limited funding available, but very diverse needs in Augusta, especially in these different pockets? I think I used the South Side example for the sewer connection access, where, East Augusta has some very different challenges. With limited funding, how would you address those things, whether it be adding innovation, using existing funding, delaying, whatever you would do? How would you approach those issues?
Sure. And one of the areas, and specifically, I'll give you a specific example of what we did previously is we extended the Upper Butler sewer through Gordon Highway, Gate 1, and brought it up what was called the Georgia Vitrified Tract. We extended that up to Grovetown, allowed them to tie in and distribute send a certain part of their sewage to Augusta, and that was revenue generated as part of that connection. And additionally, what we did is we set up a cost sharing agreement with the developers of that tract. And in doing that, they paid back a portion of the costs as they sold the lots. And so what we did is basically front loaded and financed that work, but we were able to get a couple neighborhoods off of septic. We were able to put them onto the sanitary sewer system. We were able to provide the opportunity to expand into an area where otherwise the densities wouldn't be as high. We wouldn't have as much revenue coming out of there. And we did that and recovered costs as we went along the way. And as part of that, it obviously provides a bunch of unique opportunities for serving the fort. So that is an example I would try to follow if we have a region or an area that needs to be connected. Obviously, the budgets are always going to be limited. That's why I would say public health is first. And then obviously revenue generation would be important. And then we need to connect people onto the sewer system. If we've got an issue where it's strictly a easement issue where I've got sewer in the area, then I would add land acquisition staff. I know personally I'm working on the Barnett, Ridge Barnett Crossing sewer project up on Bel Air Ridge. And I know that to get the easements, I'm looking at about 2 years. And that's from my communications with Sandy, who is the utility department's land acquisition agent. So I know that there's a constraint on executing that project based strictly on land acquisition time. And so if it's something where I've got funding in place or I think I can pull funding forward, I would simply add capacity to her role in order to allow her to acquire those. And that's what we did during the bond program. Additionally, sanitary sewer costs about $1 million a mile off site. And that's just that's about a general rule of thumb. So when you say, if I need to extend a trunk sewer into an area, that gives you a good generalized feel for it. Additionally, if we have to go into an area where somebody has built a neighborhood and we have to add sewer afterwards, it's about 10 times the initial cost. So we're much, much better off getting in up front, extending where we can on a cost sharing basis and recovering the revenues on a rolling format. One thing about sewer, and y'all know this, sewer is a service that's provided by the city of Augusta. Sewer isn't a revenue generating thing. Typically, over the lifetime of a bond, you'll pay back that sewer at year 20 or something like that. So it's really, if nothing ever goes wrong, your rate of return is very long. And so in doing that, it's just, those are the avenues I would look for to execute and to speed up those processes. I realize funds are limited and you just got to be innovative about how you attack it.
Received. Yeah, I think we'll pivot here. I think one of the questions that I would have, is very important. I think our commission has, not only been very focused on increasing the level of service delivery to our residents and our business stakeholders, but also ensuring that we have strong and valued ethical leaders who are delivering services on their behalf. Tell me what type of values are most important to you as a leader, and how will those be seen in the utilities department if you were to select a candidate?
Gotcha. So, from a value standpoint, I want everybody to be successful. Obviously, I want to profit, persevere, longevity, and happiness for everybody that works there. From my own standpoint, I tend to have an open door in the management side, and I tend to try to hire the right people and let them work. And so in doing that, I think there's a lot of fulfillment in the water industry. I think you get into this business and you stay in it because you enjoy it. And I think a lot of us do enjoy delivering services to the population. And so in doing that, my goal would be to raise the overall quality of delivery, but also I'd like to put in place some type of career ladder for all people in the organization, because I think that keeping those employees happy helps reflect on the organization overall from the inside and outside. I think that when you've got people out there working in the field, they're your frontline interaction with the public, and having them satisfied in the work they're doing and doing a quality job reflects into the overall feeling for the organization. I think, whenever somebody goes out there and cleans up after with a project when they're complete, or they can tell somebody I'll be here on this day and they do show up, I think that's critically important to the overall perception of the city of Augusta. And so I would push those forward. It's the small details of delivery. It's pride in your work, but it's also the staff being happy. And so, as the joke goes, have fun, make money. But, that's the goal.
Got it. Well, so I think as a leader who served in some of these capacities and kind of had some experience here in Augusta, there will always be problems that are complicated and require folks at the director level and senior management level to solve them. Tell me about a unique problem, and I would say that we are in a public setting, so I would not request any names or things of that nature, but a general problem that you have solved on behalf of your employer. What was the problem? How did you resolve it? And what was the outcome?
Well, one of the problems I've identified early on in a lot of the utility systems is while they collect information, they don't really know where their water goes.
Okay.
And so overall, they can tell you how I sold this much water, but they can't tell you spatially how that's done. And so what I did a long time ago in the utility department when I was systems program manager is I implemented a goal to map the city's billing database back to the parcel layer so that you could then go and load up and look at the individual water usage on a parcel level. And we did that in-house, and you have to know the nature of the databases. IT has come just tremendously long ways in the past 10 years with making sure that we can find an address and that all the addresses in the city are consistent. But back then we didn't. So we had to hand match about 30% of the addresses because of corner lots, subdivisions, things that were once called something and were called another. And in doing that, we're able to then make a more informed decision about, what's really going on in this system. And, you have a question there. Am I moving water to the right location? Do I have a metering issue where I've got a region of my service system that appears to be consistently metering low? Is it something where I should start replacing meters in those areas to make sure that I'm properly recording what's actually going out the door? And summarily from that, the other side of it is I then roll those back over into the sanitary sewer system so that I can say, well, if this neighborhood is using 1 million gallons a day and there's 2 million in the sanitary sewer system, I've got 1 million of inflow or infiltration that I need to get out of it. It's costing me money. I'm treating groundwater for no reason. And so I've done that consistently at every organization I've been at. I've done it for Augusta. I've done it for Disney. I've done it for a number of other municipalities. And it's been successful. It was the basis of the stormwater mapping effort. When we started that process with the stormwater utility, it's key that we know which parcel is attached to which utility account, because that's how we chose to bill it. And so in doing that, we use that data set as a jumping off point to complete the rest of the system for the stormwater utility. Gave us a big head start.
Got it. So I think that's first, thank you for that great technical answer. I think it sheds some light on how you reduce expenses and increase revenues through efficiencies. I think one of the other questions would be, Augusta is a fairly large organization. In this role, you'd have a minimum of 15 counterparts that for the most part, you have to coexist and work with. I think engineering and some of our other areas definitely intertwine with utilities. How do you handle disagreements and conflicts with coworkers within the work environment? What's kind of your philosophy or mode of operation there?
Yeah, so whenever there's been a disagreement, we typically try to sit down and discuss what the issue is. Is it a decision that somebody made? There's always personal decisions, a history. Obviously, sometimes you have to go back to what's the history of the people that are involved in the conflict. Sometimes it's an individual item where they have an opinion on a specific subject. It's a Ford Chevy issue sometimes, and you have to get down to what's the specific item that's really appropriate for this targeted application. And it's not always that one is the overall answer always. Sometimes there is a correct answer for this solution It is not correct for others. As far as conflicts within the interdepartmental, typically what I've seen in there is there's timing conflicts, or what they've got engineering has a project that has to go forward and utilities isn't prepared to deal with it. And so my goal in this would be to say, okay, let's go ahead and build up the communication between the two departments, particularly also with IT. IT's got goals what they're trying to accomplish and achieve. And we need to make sure that we're on board with how we feel like those should be done. And so that we also want to make sure they've got a 2 or 3 year goal for doing a migration to a different platform. Are we consistent with that? And obviously they look at those things, but people get very accustomed to how they operate on a daily basis. So my goal is to sit down, meet, map out what the projects are, if there's conflicts. If there's monetary conflicts, this often happens. I need you to move a water main. Well, let's figure out how we could do that. Does it really need to be moved? Could it be sleeved? There's a number of things that could be done to accommodate that water main or that sewer line. If it does have to be moved, how can I move it in the process? How are you and I talking and working back and forth so that your contractor doesn't show up on the site and tell me, a $50 a foot water main is going to cost me $500 a foot. And then we're stuck with a big, road construction project that can't go forward. So my goal would be to go in and have early facilitation and communication in order to minimize those conflicts. Sometimes you are not going to get over those. Sometimes it's going to come down to a question of who has to pay for it. In those particular cases, I hope to minimize those, but I'm not averse to saying sometimes I do have to move utilities in order to accommodate the greater good, or I have to make process changes in order to accommodate the longer overall strategic vision for the city of Augusta. It's just, I had to be consistent in how my operation works, and I have to make sure I can meet my regulatory guidelines and make sure that I can, provide safe water and collect sewage.
I think another question, I guess, when we start talking about organization, and this will be my second to last question before we would allow you to have I'd call it a statement, not a closing statement, but then we would turn it over to the commission, allow them to ask any additional follow-up questions if they have them, and then turn it over to you for questions. And so that next question is, how well do you know our organization? And based on your knowledge of it, and this wouldn't be a binding question, so it can be big picture, but based on whatever knowledge you have of our organization, what kind of changes do you see as kind of low-hanging fruit, opportunities that you can look at and explore from day one?
Okay. I know the organization fairly well, but I know the organization that I knew. I still know the people that are in various, missions and roles in the organization. And I know the things that they were set up to do, the CMMS, the CMOM programs. I know the Fort Gordon staff. I know the people that actually executed the contracts on the fort because I was one of the people that carried them around back and forth. And I know how it was set up and why it was set up the way it was as a commodities contract that actually was renewed in 2017. So I know those pieces of the organization. I know the engineers. I know the surveyors. I know the CMMS staff. Like I said, I know the operations group. I don't know everybody in Kelsey's organization, but I do know a lot of the people. I know what their goal is. I know what their overall objective is on a daily basis and how they're supposed to operate. I've run safety and training programs, things like that. So I've interoperated with every part of the organization. I know obviously the billing group. I worked very closely with Norma and that whole group when we put in the stormwater utility pieces. Worked with the CSRs from both utilities and stormwater as we stepped through how we were going to incorporate the different screens and billing requirements into the city system. Land acquisition, obviously, too, as I mentioned previously. From the top of my head, the things that I would try to do, I think I've mentioned this previously, but I've got a succession theory in mind as to how we need to start backfilling people. And I would start reaching out to the universities and technical schools, looking for people who are being trained in this area, who also see this as a viable career path. I know we have a local program here in Augusta. I would push to get more people into that program. And I'll talk about this in a minute as part of my statement. But the other thing I would do is go to the universities and look for the recent graduates. Because I learned a lot when I came into this program, even though I had 5, 6, 7 years of experience. And so in doing that, I think that the All the engineers, as they graduate out of school, the surveyors, I think they gain a tremendous amount of advantage of being within a municipal organization because they learn why you do things the way you do when you do it. And so they're able to say, okay, well, I might not know how fast it takes or how long it takes to make a decision on a project. Well, they learn those things. They learn why we make decisions about laying pipe different ways and accommodating different designs, how we deal with true conflicts in the road. You know, if you come across a 24-inch gas main that's 1,000 PSI, you've got to figure out how you're going around it because we're not moving it. And so there's those types of things. So I would go into the universities, and I've done that successfully before. Excuse me. And then I would say, okay, I want to start backfilling my people. And some of these are not going to stay. Some people are going to come in, they're going to stay for 2 or 3 years. And so I would try to develop a rolling, pattern to go in there and say, let me keep recruiting, let me keep pushing people into the organization. Not everybody's going to want to be in the same role for a long period of time. Some are going to want to go into project management. Some are going to want to go into construction management. Some are going to go into finance. That's just the way the world works. Obviously, the same thing would go on. What I see as a shortfall is keeping some of my operators in place. So I know it's always difficult to keep the first entry-level operations staff in. The wages are typically not very high. And in addition, they're required to pass a series of tests. And some of them get in and then realize they don't like it. Some of them get in and can't pass the tests. So you've got to, keep a constant stream. And obviously, if they pass the test, get certified, every other municipality in the state is going to be looking at them. Lab operators are really big, as well as the plant operators. So you need to make sure we keep a steady stream of people being developed to go into that organization and move through the organization that way. One of the things that's going to happen in the next 5 years to 10 years to the next permit cycles is we're going to see nutrient limits on the Savannah River. The foundation was laid with the Savannah Harbor TMDL, the BOD TMDL. We know this is coming. And so as part of this, we need to start thinking longer term about what are our treatment mechanisms going to need. We spent $85 million at Messerly. We've got an advanced oxidation process, biological nutrient removal. We can accommodate a lot of things, but we need to make sure we have the foresight to be planning for it so that as these regulations are promulgated, we have a path in place. And the reason I say this is because our operators need to know how to handle this. What you'll find out when you go to the statewide conferences, the regional conferences, it's, again, I designed this plant to perform a certain function. Well, my operations group doesn't know how to do it. Well, I need to make sure that they have been trained to a certain skill level in order to operate what our future requirements are going to be. We've seen taste and odor issues coming out of the river, coming out of the lake that historically haven't been here. Right now, they have not provided a public health issue. But in the improper circumstances, we could have algal blooms that create toxins. And so we need to make sure we got a plan in place to deal with that. And that's part of having trained operators and engineers and people that know our system. And so I want to build up incoming people. I want to build up retention, build up career paths for folks. And that's part of my longer term goal. That's it. I'll keep talking for hours about that.
Yeah, well, listen, I think I follow that piece, and I think that would definitely be something that would interest the administrator's office in learning more, and I'm sure our commission may have an interest in that as well. So thank you for sharing those insights with us and the importance of succession planning. I think it's been a hot topic here in Augusta. I think my final question, and is one similar to the first question that we asked, all applicants on why Augusta and tell us about your experience. My final question is more so, you've got the public watching, you've got the commission watching, and a recommendation will be expected from my office. So knowing that environment, tell us why you're the most unique and appropriate and frankly best fit for this position. Why you versus other qualified candidates?
Gotcha. So obviously, as I mentioned in the preliminary, I love water. I love this field. I love the business, and I love Augusta. I have worked all over the state, worked all over the Southeast. I've taken opportunities and worked for one of the largest companies in the world and returned here. And I did that because I like the area. I like the people. I feel like from my perspective, I've got a very deep and broad sense of what it takes to operate the water utility. I've worked in an environmental permitting side. I've worked in the design of water plants, the design of wastewater plants. I've worked on long-term regulatory projects, the Central Florida Water Initiative, where we were actually out of groundwater in Central Florida, and we had to figure out how we were going to distribute the remaining shares amongst the people in a very rapidly growing environment. So I've worked on long-term projects that are difficult. I bring a lot of very unique perspectives to the need to solve solutions. That doesn't mean every solution is a massive project. It means that you have to, cater the result or the answer to the problem that you have. And I believe I bring that breadth of experience. I believe I'm very easygoing, easy to deal with. I think if you talk to people that have worked with me in the past, you'll find that I try to be accommodative. I try to do professional development and growth for my staff because I want everybody to be fulfilled in their daily job, their obligations they have to do. Again, from the long term, I feel like I provide at the right age. I provide a longer term leadership pattern for this utility. I think I know the issues that are forthcoming, and I think I can provide the leadership.
Thank you. So with that, I'll turn it over to you before opening up questions from our visionary commission. Do you have a statement that you'd like to make in addition to the responses to the questions that I've asked?
I've got a lot of things I could talk about. I mean, one of the things I had put down, obviously, I think there's a very big potential for tapping a stormwater resource at Fort Gordon. I know that personally, they've tried to give it to the utilities department previously. I believe that's a long-term revenue source. I believe that interagency cooperation between myself and Dr. Malik and the people on the fort could provide that as a contract and a source of revenue for the city of Augusta, provided the commission and the leadership are realizing that what we're talking about is going to require some additional staffing levels and additional commitment from the city in order to accommodate it. My understanding is they would do that in a minute if they had the contractual mechanism to facilitate it. Now, they did not have the contractual mechanism to facilitate the privatization of water and sewer, and they proceeded when they got ready. So they did that through a commodities contract. It was executed locally. And so my point in telling you that is that I think if we were to show solidarity and will and desire to do that, we could move that forward in the next 5 years as an overall benefit to the city of Augusta and to bolster our revenues so that we're able to bring those funds in and accommodate places where we know we need to do additional work. Aside from that, one of the things I just wanted to say was that I know Tom was working on an initiative to bring innovation and technology into the water sector, similar to what Gwinnett is doing. And so that's something I wanted to do here. It's something I would like everybody to realize and to try to participate, basically to make us a hub for technology in the water division, so that when you have things that are new that you want to test, ideas that you want to process, we would be on the forefront of helping you get those things evaluated, reviewed, and discuss whether or not they're as effective as they should be. And I hope the commission would be on board with developing a program like that and hopefully give us the kind of attention that Gwinnett's gotten with the water tower program. So I just wanted to say those things. I look forward to, I hope, this is a profitable and prosperous conversation for all of us. I hope I've answered a lot of your questions. Obviously, I'll take any questions that are forthcoming and be happy to discuss any piece or component of what I've talked about today or anything else.
All righty. Well, with that, I would definitely open the floor to our commission, who has the option to ask many questions. And so I would defer to any commissioners who would like to unmute, and feel free to ask Mr. Bine any questions that you have at this time.
Okay.
I think I see you, Commissioner McKnight. Feel free to hop right in. It's very informal in the question process.
Good morning, Mr. Bine.
Good
How
morning.
are you doing?
I'm very good today. Thank you.
Yes, sir. A very impressive interview. I just have two questions I wanted to ask you real quick, and
Sure.
And I'll let you get on your way. But I just was curious, have you ever applied, for other directors' positions before, out of curiosity?
With the city of Augusta? Or
City of, yeah, I just.
in general,
I was
no,
just
I applied for the director of operations for RCES at Disney. And
I'm not sure.
Oh,
And-
I would want some insight. I would want some insight on some of those questions. Ms. Rooker, can we inquire in this fashion Just want to make sure. I know you're sitting in.
If her question is an open question, is she
Okay.
just asking if he applied for other positions? That's open.
Past, or, you know, in the past for any director positions. I was just wanting to know.
I don't think in the city of Augusta I have. I've applied for the director position for Columbia County's water utility.
Okay.
That's
And
good.
that was a conversation that they had with me. I have a long running relationship with the other, people in the other government organizations around the CSRA. I did apply for a director position at Disney. Didn't think I would get it, and I didn't. But I did get the position I was looking for down there, which was the principal civil engineer, where I oversaw everything civil engineering wise from one end of the parks to the other.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you, and I appreciate your answer.
Sure.
Remember, I think you said you had a second question, right? Did you want to go ahead and ask it now?
I'll let Commissioner Clark ask, and then I might come back to it. But anyway, thank you for now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Now, Clark, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I just have one question, and please don't take offense to it, but here in Augusta, the citizens, they have inquiring minds, and so this question is for the inquiring minds.
All right.
Will you perform your duties for Augusta and disavow any and all special interest influence?
Certainly. I'm not sure what the question is targeting or focused on, but I see working for the city of Augusta as working for the city of Augusta. I don't see inside or outside influences affecting that. I think the city of Augusta has a goal of things it needs to accomplish, and it has obviously the commission's leadership in saying this is the direction we're going. And short of a public health issue or a engineering reason to have a question or uncertainty about that, I would execute the direction the commission needs. We need to move forward, but my role would be as the utility leader. And so my goal is to provide clean water and sanitary sewer service for the entire city of Augusta. And as I said, to be effective, to be profitable, and to provide an innovation center so that we are looked at as the leading, campaign, the forefront of this throughout the state of Georgia.
And I certainly appreciate your candor with that answer. You were very forthcoming. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I apologize, Commission. I can't really see who is unmuting or if you have additional questions. So feel free to hop right in with any questions you might have.
No, that's all I had, Mr. Administrator.
Yes,
and
sir.
I received a satisfactory answer.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other commissioners that I may not be able to see in the queue who might have questions for the candidate?
Mr. Bond, real quick, you've been at your job right now for how many years?
About 3 in this role.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, so we were recently acquired by the Ardura Group. And so Constantine is a specialty water and wastewater treatment process company. And so, but as I ended up back in Augusta, not only do I do that, I deal with a lot of stormwater because of my environmental modeling background. And so I fit into that mold. And so as part of it, over the summer, the core owners of the company decided it was prudent to merge with a group called the Ardura Group, and we're now a national firm. And so the Constantine Group filled in the southeastern region. We have a very strong presence in Florida, Atlanta, South Carolina, Alabama, Texas, New York, and California. And so as part of that, my role has been transitioning into a regional manager. And so I've been moving towards picking up a zone that moves from Atlanta down the coast, Augusta, Savannah, and North Florida, which is where I've been working historically before COVID really set in. And so to kind of give you an answer, I've been in this particular company 3 years. I've worked with the owners of Constantine since 2008. I actually worked with them when we did the utilities master plan, and I wrote the environmental permitting section of that. So I've got a long history with them. And as far as being in the water utility business, I've been in the water business in the state of Georgia since 99. If you don't count my collegiate career, I spent about 3 years doing GIS analysis for the University of Georgia as a student. So.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions? If so, if not, I will close out. I apologize. I just can't make out on the screen if there are additional questions. I'll pause here for about 30 seconds to take any additional questions from the commission. If there are some, please go ahead. If not, Mr. Bine, after a brief pause, feel free to ask any questions that you might have of the organization through either myself or the commission.
Certainly.
All right, well, hearing none, sir, we'll turn it back over to you.
Certainly. Well, I'm going to ask one of my stock questions, and this goes out to the commissioners, and this is really, I want to say, knowing what you're looking for in this position. Obviously, everybody's got something in mind. In your opinion, what are the top 2 or 3 characteristics that you're looking for that you feel like would be successful in this position for the city of Augusta?
Commission, feel free. I think I see you, Commissioner Garrett. Feel free to hop right in with the response.
Thanks, Administrator. Just to answer your question, I think the top thing that we want to look for is, as you've stated numerous times, is the effort to continue to help your employees within the department to better themselves and to provide opportunities for career growth. I think that's vitally important just to morale, as well as, making sure that the next person in line has the ability to step in case something, like we're going through now takes place. So, I was really pleased to hear some of those aspects. Something else that I really want a utilities director to be mindful of is, this is a revenue generating department. And so, we want to make sure that we're protecting Augusta's assets as well as, making the most of what we're able to do within a water utility. And also I want a director to come in with a plan to further expand our water systems, especially when it comes to sewage. In my district, especially, that's one of these things that is greatly lacking. I think there's such a good opportunity in that area for development. And right. until we have sewage access, I think that you're going to see development stifled. So I'm hoping that, whoever we decide to hire as a director will come in and help implement a plan of action.
Understood. Good.
I think I see you, Commissioner Hassan. And I tell you, any commissioner, you hop right in and respond to these. And, it's fairly informal, hopping in as you please.
Good morning, Mr. Bynes.
Morning.
Yes, so just in terms of what on the personal level, I think I'm looking for as well is a leadership with integrity, someone that could have also some impact and morale of the organization in a good way, especially the department that person would have oversight over. But also, like Commissioner Garrett just made mention, I think you mentioned in your overall presentation as well, to give us the ability to continue to expand in places currently where people already reside, where there's no where there's no sewer at, but at the same time, get ahead of some places like you mentioned. If you can get in there, you get $1,000 a mile, $1 million a mile. But if you wait, there's gonna be 10 times that. So also with those things in mind, we have so much potential for growth in the South Augusta area on both ends of the spectrum on that.
Yes.
And keep the eyes on the prize in that regard, and also having the vision and the wisdom to do exactly what you introduced us to, I think, about the potential of folk going along the stormwater to be able to sit down further and share that with the commission, as well as if the job is offered to you and you accept it. So thank you very much for your comment this morning.
Thank you.
All right. righty. So I think, Mr. Bond, do you have any additional questions that might be directed to the commission, administrator's office, or maybe even HR directly? If you do, feel free to I think we've got time for one more question before we have to close out the interview.
I'll check my list. Administrator Donald, I know we talked about previously in the previous interview some of what your objectives and goals were, and I tried to be consistent with those, and I think I understand those. I don't have direct questions about that today.
Okay.
Obviously, y'all are going through a second round of interviews. Are you anticipating moving forward on this in the nearer term, the shorter term?
Well, I'll tell you, I think, we are addressing what the commission actually wants and desires. So the purpose of this interview was to give those who are interested in moving forward or potentially moving forward in the affirmative, the opportunity to see those who rose to the top in the process. And so with this taking place, I think that depending on how everyone shakes out, I would feel confident making a recommendation that the commission would formally consider. And so that can happen fairly quickly, or it could be stretched out. It really depends on the will of the commission. And I wouldn't, speak on their behalf, but our mayor and commission would make a decision on that post haste. But after today, I don't believe that there's a legal or operational reason that would restrict it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that information.
Yes, sir.
I've got no other questions. I want to say thank you for bringing me back. I want to say thank you for interviewing me. As I've said, I love the organization, love the city of Augusta. I really appreciate the opportunity to come in here and present what I think is good and positive moving forward. And I hope that I'm the selected candidate. I understand you have a lot of people to look at, or a few people left to look at. And obviously, if I can do anything else, answer any more questions or meet again, please let me know. And I look forward to it.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed interviewing you and learning of your credentials and appreciate you being inside of the process and our unique way of vetting candidates, and appreciate you in participating in that. I didn't know if the commission wanted to bid you adieu as we close out, but I'll defer to them and we will consider this the end of our time together.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your interest in Augusta. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Westbine. I appreciate it. Good interview.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Sir, thank you. Okay.
Well, again, thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate you participating today.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good day.
Commission, would you like to take a brief 5-minute break, or would you like to just hop right in and go directly to our next candidate?
I'm good to jump right in.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Absolutely. Mr. Lewis, would you please bring in our next candidate, please?
Yes, sir.
And commission, just for your knowledge, what I'll do is the same process. It's kind of welcome our candidate, go over the process, and then kind of hop right into it. How you doing, Ms. Corbin? I see that you've joined us.
I have. How are you guys doing today?
We are doing well. First, thank you very much for joining us here today, taking the next steps within the process. Very similar to other candidates that have been in the process. I want to thank you for, your willingness and commitment to not only join the process, but take on this very important leadership mantle on behalf of our commission, over 200,000 residents that we have and the employees of the city of Augusta and the utilities department. And I would likely give a special thanks to you being a member of Augusta's team, being willing to step up and take on the mantle of leadership. I think that says a lot. And I've been very impressed with you through the process and wanted to just start by thanking you for participating.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, what we'll do, I'll go over briefly the process, give you an opportunity to answer some scripted questions. I may have some follow-ups, and then once we complete these questions, you'll have an opportunity, if you so choose, to make, I think sometimes we call it a closeout statement. I'll call it a defining statement, because afterwards the commission will also have the opportunities to ask you questions directly from things that we may not have covered through our scripted questions. And so that's the process, and we'll go ahead and get started, unless you have any questions about the process that you might need clarity on.
No, I think I'm good to go. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, again, excited to have you as a part of the process, and thank you for your continued service and work with the city of Augusta. I think for the edification of whether it be our public, the commission, or my office, could you just give us some insight on a question I just like to ask? Why Augusta? What is it about Augusta and this role that attracts you? And what is it? Give us a little bit of an overview of your past experience that you think prepares you for the role.
Okay. Well, I will just start by kind of giving you a brief history of my experience, and then
Okay.
I'll talk more specifically about this role. So
Okay.
I was born and raised in the CSRA. You know, I'm a local girl. I'm from here. I went to college at Clemson University. I have a bachelor's degree in biosystems engineering with a concentration in environmental and natural resources. So that's a very water specific degree there from Clemson. So after college, I went into design consulting. I have a very strong background in design. I have about 8.5 years in design consulting in Charleston, where I first went after college, and here locally as well. So right after college, I went to Charleston. I worked in design consulting, but I was really, throughout my career, I really loved water resources, but I was also drawn to the utilities departments. You know, I worked for the local utilities in Charleston. They were my clients: Charleston Water System, Isle of Palms, Berkeley County Water and Sanitation. So those were my clients. Those are the kind of projects I was working on. I even have projects at Greenville Water System. So all across the Southeast, really. So those projects really got me excited about utilities departments specifically. I was drawn to public service. You know, I really liked working at utility departments because you get a variety. You're not just doing design, you're helping the operation of the utility department. And that really was interesting to me. So in my career, when I was still in Charleston, I accepted a role at Charleston Water System. I was there for a very brief time, but during that time, I really enjoyed what I was doing. My husband and I decided that we wanted to move back here to my home. And that's why I left there. But I will just say that if I was still in Charleston, I truly believe that I'd still be at Charleston Water System. I still have great relationships with the folks there, and I really enjoyed my time there. So when I came to Augusta, I was looking at Augusta in a new way. You know, I grew up here, but you know, I wasn't an engineer then. I maybe wasn't looking at it the same way I was. So right off the bat, you know, I got a job with a local consultant. I was there about 1.5 years, and that really gave me a great opportunity to really delve into the engineering field here and learn a lot more about the area. But again, I was drawn to utilities. That's what I really think my passion is. That's my career. So, you know, through my experience here, Augusta Utilities was my client, and I had met Tom and met the engineering folks here at Augusta Utilities, and that's when I came over to Augusta Utilities. You know, I started out as a design engineer 6, and I very quickly moved up the ranks. I was a design and engineer 6 for about 1 year. Then I became the engineering manager in the engineering division. I was only the engineering manager for a month because before I came interim assistant director. So I've been assistant director of the engineering and construction division for over 4 years now, if you count my time as interim as well. So during that time, you know, I've got to know everybody in my division. I've gotten to know everybody in the utility, because the unique thing about the engineering division is we talk about customers. Our customers are external, but we have internal customers as well. So when we're designing projects, we want to make sure what we design, our operators, it's what they want. It's how they want to be able to operate it. And we take them into consideration. So I work with all the different divisions through my role here now. Obviously, since, Tom passed away, all of the assistant directors have really had to step up and take on additional responsibilities. So in the last, year, I've definitely been getting a lot more exposure to things at that executive level. And so that's really my background here at Augusta Utilities. And what ultimately drove me to want to apply for this position is, the fact that I love Augusta Utilities. I love my employees. I really care about customer service and in the water industry. And this is my career choice. This is where I want to be. So it's really just a natural progression for me to want to move up and want to continue to serve that way.
Absolutely. And just a brief follow-up question on that, just to give some insights to the commission as they evaluate. When you look at your total years within the water industry, if you can just kind of highlight what that would be. And I think my second piece is to give them some insight into the role that you play within the organization as assistant director over engineering and construction division, how many staff members and things of that nature.
Okay, so I have over 15 years of experience, and my experience from pretty much immediate, my first job I worked after college was land development. So there was a utilities portion of that. So I was doing, new development, utility design, but that really, I kind of knew pretty fast that I wanted to hone in on water resources, on water and sewer design. So my second job after college was Arcadis, which I was at for I believe it was around 7 years. I was really focused on utility work that whole time. That's when I had those clients that I mentioned to you, Charleston Water System, Isle of Palms, Berkeley County, Greenville Water System. So I've been, pretty much the whole 15 years I've been focused on utility work. I had that short time at Charleston Water System, and then I've been here at Augusta Utilities for 5.5 years. So, like I said, I'm committed to Augusta Utilities. I see myself here for the long haul. Or the CSRA is just where I want to be. And so I want to continue in my chosen field, but I want to do it here.
No, so I think that was great. And I appreciate you for illuminating that, because I think it really highlights, that diverse experience has given you a lot of insight, not only in the water, but also the supporting activities that support water, whether it be with partners and others. And so that kind of brings us into the second question that I think ties in. When you think about the overall activities that impact departments, especially one in the utilities, budget is a big one. And so when we look at budget, if you could just highlight, your experience in preparing departmental budgets and expenditures as it relates to the financial goals and objectives, whether it be broader ones that the commission sets when they pass the budget, the administrator's office, or within the department. And feel free to leverage your experience here in Augusta, as well as the diverse areas that you've worked elsewhere as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So ever since I became the assistant director of engineering, I have had to, for my division, prepare the budget every year for my division. So that includes, training budgets, equipment budgets, and just overall operating budgets. But also, since I became assistant director, I have been helping to plan for the capital improvement budget. So, previously in years past, what that would look like would be me and Tom and Steve Little, the assistant director of finance and metering, sitting down and looking at, what our cash flow is and what projects that we have on the horizon. We have a capital improvement plan that we have been operating under, and we're actually looking at going back. That's on a 5-year cycle. We're looking at redoing that soon. But I would help to plan on, what projects do we have coming up? What do we need to prioritize? And, and then we look at what our cash flow looks like and how we're going to do that. So in years past, that's been a group effort. But now, obviously, this past year, I've had to take on a much more higher level role in that process. And like I said, we are, when I came into AUD, there was a capital improvement program that was already set up that I was working within. But now I'm at the point where I'm looking at creating the next one. So I've already started that planning process. I've already started looking at what are the priorities and how are we going to finance those. When I was thinking about this position, I sat down and thought about what are some of the critical issues that a director is really going to need to be concerned with. And the top two things that I put down on my list were aging infrastructure and funding capital improvement projects. And that, is really key. So, I've already started not just looking at this year, but looking at the next 5 and 10 years. And when do we think that the reserves we have are going to be exhausted? And how are we going to continue to operate and do the things that we need to do? And I can talk about that a little bit more later. I don't want to preempt maybe another question. I can always follow up at the end.
No, you're actually right on time, because it is a follow-up, and I asked it to you as a one-part, but it's actually a two-part question, so you're right on par. And you started talking about how you make strategic decisions based on budget. And so I think it's very unique, because you're in kind of a role now that's going to have to make those strong recommendations based on your strategy. Feel free to kind of expand on that. I think you're right on time with that.
Okay. Well, obviously, there's development in Augusta, Richmond County. So, obviously new development, the way that we want to look at funding that is just through partnerships with developers. We're always open to cost share agreements, but what I think we could do moving forward is to be a little more proactive. We can get together with the planning department and really just be proactive about getting together with those developers. Developers fund their own projects, but at the same time, we have to be looking at, what may be upstream of them, where do we want to expand to, and how can we help that, how can we partner with them to benefit the whole community? Other issues like putting sewer, which I know is a big important issue for the commission and for yourself, is putting sewer in areas that already are developed that we don't have sewer. And I've already been, planning for that. We've got a lot of projects that are going on now that are being designed for unsewered areas. And the amount of projects that I have on the list that we're designing and doing, the amount of money that's going to take to finish all those out is a lot, and we don't have unlimited funds. So we really have to be looking at new ways to finance those. And just some of the interesting things that we're doing, we're working with a company now to do energy savings to basically fund capital projects. And so they'll come up with projects that we can do that will fund themselves, but not only that, the additional savings or money that we'll make off these projects will help fund additional. So yeah, bonds are something that are always probably in our future, but at the same time, we need to be looking at other innovative ways to come up with money. We want to leverage our partnerships with developers, but we want to come up with innovations that help save us money and have money to fund these things. But we also want to just be focused on what is important to the commission and to our customers as well, so that we can prioritize those projects. That does have to happen.
Absolutely. Well, listen, you're moving right in the right direction, because I think my next question kind of talks about implementation, right? You're in a very unique situation because you are a part of the organization and have unique ideas as well as observations that many of us might not be privy to. Assuming that you were the selected candidate, what are your first steps in aligning your vision with that of the commission, the administrator's office, but also your existing team members?
Okay, well, like you said, I am definitely in a great position for this because I'm already here. I think I already have a pretty good idea of what the issues and the plans are. But at the same time, I think, having those formal conversations once if I step into a director role would be important. I've always have an open door policy with my employees. I'm always hands-on, and not just with my own employees, but also the other divisions. But I think just sitting down and listening to them and understanding what drives them, what's important to them, what would make our utility run better, I think overall that's going to be important. But again, that's kind of working down through the organization. But I think it's important that I build the relationships with, yourself and the commissioners, so that I can understand what the goals are. The commissioners, that's our connection to our customers. That's how we know what the public needs and wants. So I think it's very important to be, building those relationships and be listening to them and really seeing how that we can achieve those goals. And it takes, it takes communication, it takes teamwork, it takes, great interpersonal skills, which I think I have.
Yeah. And so would it be fair to say that the approach would kind of be starting at the top at the commission level and then kind of working that process down throughout the organization?
I think that's true, but I mean, I think it's a simultaneous process, obviously. I mean, I'm definitely getting to know my employees at the same time. I don't want it to be, I don't want to lock myself into that, because I think you kind of miss out on hearing what your employees say as well. I think you've got to definitely keep them first and foremost. A director does not run the department by themselves. They're only as good as the employees that work with them. So we have to keep our employees in mind all the time as well. So I just want to say, I think I don't think it's one approach. I think both are very important and key. You just have to be, you have to be versatile enough to juggle both things.
I like that a lot. Let's talk about that as a follow-up. So it's kind of hearing from the commission, but then kind of balancing that with the existing staff and insights from them. Tell me about that. How likely would you do that?
I think that's 100% necessary. At the end of the day, the commission comes to me. I'm an engineer. I'm a problem solver. So you come to me with problems, but I've got to make recommendations, and you're expecting me to tell you how we're going to solve those problems. So I need the support of my staff, of my employees, all the way from the bottom up, helping me to figure out how I'm going to solve those problems. So I think, it's just key to be, I guess the direction is coming from the commission. What is it? What are, obviously we have our core goals that we have to do. We have to meet regulations and provide water service and collect sewer and public safety and health. But when you start talking about capital improvements and things like that, then I'm getting, my direction and where I need to be going from the commission. And then I'm leveraging my employees and their knowledge on how do I solve that problem? How do we make this happen? So I think, again, it's a real balancing act, but it's just, I mean, that's the position. That's what the director is.
So I think, again, that leads us to another, I guess, our next question. And I think you can tie those things together. Give us some insight into how you would manage your senior staff and evaluate their performance and our current system. How would you kind of manage them as moving kind of into the director's seat, but then also evaluating their performance to make sure our system performs optimally?
Okay, so I'm part of the assistant director team already. I'm a part of that executive team. So I have a relationship with all these individuals already. We work as a team, we meet regularly. We know what's going on in each other's divisions. But I think the key is, and again, and I know I've said this, but in the last, year, few months since Tom's passed away, I've gotten to know them and what they're doing a lot more intimately than I did before, so to speak. Because we've had to lean on each other. We've had to help each other. So I think that I've already got the foundation for that relationship that's there. So I think the key is just understanding what the goals, long range and short range are. Each assistant director has a very different role. I mean, things that I'm going to have to learn more about are, customer service and metering and billing. And I've been started to be more involved in that recently. So that's great. But, you have to kind of know what are the metrics for each division and what are the goals and what are the long range plans, and then just see how we're achieving those. I think, and I always say this, everything goes back to communication, just staying in good communication, making sure I'm aware of what's going on, that they keep me up to date on what's going on. And I think we all have that great relationship. It's really made us strong. It hasn't been a great, this past year hasn't been great for us, but I think we all kind of came together and we continue to operate. And I think that built a very strong relationship between all of us. I think you probably all know, but, one of the other big critical issues I talked about was succession planning, or that I put on my list was succession planning. And I talked about this in my previous interview as well, but I think, it's going to be very important, not only that I work with that executive team on what their goals and responsibilities are, but we're going to have to start thinking about succession planning. There are 5 assistant directors. 3 of them are nearing retirement in the next 5 years, and they have plans to retire, and they're open about that. And so I think that's going to be really key for the new director, is to just really understand what their roles are and understand how to fill those roles properly and start to make plans and make moves to get that done.
Got it. Do you have a preliminary plan related to succession planning, or is that something that you would kind of develop once in the role?
So as I've been interested in this position and I've started the interview process, I've actually sat down and talked to the other assistant directors about, what the key responsibilities and what the key features are of the person who would succeed them. And so, I've started thinking about it for sure, because like I said, that's a critical issue that, if I'm going to step into this role, I'm going to need to hit the ground running on. So yeah, I've started sitting down with them and asking them what, had they had discussions with Tom about this? What was the plan? Do you know what the plan was? How do you feel we should move forward with this? So I won't say that, hey, I know this person is going to become this person, but, I think I've started the groundwork on what it's going to take to find the right individuals to fill these roles. And obviously I'm not necessarily in a position to be doing that, but they're all open with me. They know what it's going to be like. Even if I weren't to become director, I'm still going to be here and I still care about the department. And so as the colleague of these people, I still care that these positions are filled appropriately.
Got it. Understood. Good insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we'll move to the next question, which kind of ties back. You talked about, the expanded budget responsibilities that you've taken on in the last year or so. And during that time, and when you look at the wealth of capital needs that are in Augusta, I think you highlighted infrastructure as or aging infrastructure as one of the challenges that we face. I think we also know that funds are always limited in government, and Augusta, unfortunately, is no different. Give me some insights into how you would prioritize a long list of capital projects when you've got a limited amount of funding. And I'll just highlight a couple of things. I think right now we're in the midst of the pandemic, which of course is impacting us, but I've heard many of our commissioners kind of talk about the expansion of sewer, which I think you alluded to as well, specifically in South Augusta, and then East Augusta, we've got the drainage issues that impact water quality and things of that nature. How do you prioritize this long list of capital projects when you've got limited funding? What's your thought process and strategy and how you would address that?
Okay, well, like you said, we definitely have a long list of projects. I'm well aware of that. So honestly, we have to get them designed. We have to get them through permitting. We have to get easement acquisitions done. So I have a spreadsheet that I keep as part of my capital budget planning for like the sewer projects, and I keep all of them in there. I have linear foot of sewer. I do all the details. I won't bore you with all the details, but I've broken it down to cost, anticipated cost per potential service, that sort of thing. So I'm just really crunching the numbers on that and just seeing when we believe we'll have them ready to go to construction. So that's the first step. They got to be ready to go to construction first. We really do lean on the commission to tell us what the priority areas are, but at the same time, we look at where the need is. We look at, can we get in there and do construction and get out and have a successful project? So those are kind of, the low level things that we do. As far as prioritizing projects overall, I think I talked about it before. It's about funding for sure. Development projects, that's an automatic, place that we look at because development is crazy in Augusta right now and we want to keep up with it. So we're looking at anywhere where we can put money to, cost share and continue to build off of those developers' projects as well. Ultimately, you have emergency projects, you have renewal projects, you have to take care of your existing infrastructure first. I mean, we have a lot of old sewers in the city. I mean, we have cast iron sewers that have been in the ground at, since pre-1900, like 1860. There were water lines and sewer lines put in the ground that are still there now. So we have aging infrastructure. So obviously we have to do emergency projects when we need to, but one of the things that I'm very excited about is that we've started using CityWorks in the last 5 to 6 years, and we're collecting data. And we're at the point now where I've been pushing for our asset management program. We're starting to use that data to do proactive maintenance. So that's another way that I prioritize where we spend our money, is that I use this data we've collected. I'll just use this one example. I think I used it before, is, concrete sewer lines. We have concrete sewer lines, and if they fail under a roadway, you have a road collapse. That's a bad issue, and it costs us a lot of money. So by using our data, we'll look at where we've had these collapses, and we can focus on that area, but also we can just look at where do we have concrete sewer, where are they in roadways. Let's start doing proactive inspection of those sewer lines so that we can try to save that money, that we're not wasting money on being reactive, we're being proactive. So I think it's kind of it's a big issue. It's not a straightforward issue. There's not one, easy way to say this is how we decide what we do, because there's so many different aspects. I mean, you've got renewal and replacement, so you've got to keep what you have working and operational. You want new development, and so like I said, we try to leverage our relationships with developers on that. And then we have existing neighborhoods where we want to extend water and sewer. So that's where we kind of really get to the point that we've got to look at funding. And so we prioritize those projects. We look at what our funding options are and our manpower too, because manpower can be limiting in those situations. So that it's a big situation. It's a big issue. And I think it is key that the director has communications with the administrator on that, and that we talk with the commissioners, and that as a group, we decide how we prioritize.
Got it. Good deal. Great answer. Thank you very much. So we'll pivot a little bit. I know we've talked about some of the technical things with, we've gone over those a few, and we'll likely return a little bit, but we want to kind of pivot to leadership. And I think it's been pretty obvious that our commission is very focused on not only world-class service delivery, but, thoughtful, empathetic and ethical leadership, and making sure that we have value-based leadership as a part of the city of Augusta. What values are most important to you as a leader?
So as a leader, especially a leader in the water industry, I think the number one value is always public safety, public health. I think that it may go without saying, but I'm going to say it. I think that's our number one goal. But, after that, I really look at customer service, which again goes public service and public health, but not just, we're keeping them healthy, but just their perception of us, that they're satisfied with what we're doing, that they feel like they're getting a good service for the money that they pay, their rates that they pay. So customer service, I think that is really key. I stress that in everything I do. Like I said, in engineering, our customers are sometimes more internal. When we build projects, that's for our maintenance department, but so customer service overall. And then employee satisfaction and retention. When I became the assistant director of engineering, there was some morale issues in this division. And so, right away I came in and I got to know my employees. I think all my employees, I've gotten great feedback since I've been in this position. I have an open door policy. Everybody knows they can come talk to me, and it's not just my managers. I mean, it's all the way down through the ranks. Anybody can come in here if they need to and if they have a problem and talk to me, and they know that. They're respectful of me and my time, but at the same time, they know that I'm accessible to them. So I think, I mentioned it earlier, no director runs a utility on their own. So I think employee satisfaction and retention is really a key value. And at the end of the day, those are my strong leadership professional values. Ultimately, my personal values are just, being honest, having integrity. And that's just how I've always operated. And it's got me to the point where I am. I'm just a very straightforward and honest person.
Got it. So, I think you being a member, a current member of Augusta staff and specifically within the utility department, that on a day-to-day basis, we face a variety of challenges. It's not all pie in the sky. And some of these challenges are extremely complex. And so whether it be, and I think you're not limited to answering this based on your experience with Augusta, I think just in general, when it's time for you to address these problems, how do you do so? So give me an example of a time when you solved a problem on behalf of your employees or an employer, and then what was the outcome to that?
And I talked about this a little bit earlier, you know, a problem that I like to say that I've helped to solve, or that I'm pushing to solve, because it's not, you know, it's an ongoing problem, is trying to not be reactive, these emergency projects. It always costs a lot of money when you have to do something as an emergency and not as a planned project. So I think just pushing and supporting and advocating for the asset management program. The asset manager is one of the managers who reports to me. And we are working on a multi-year strategic asset plan right now. So I think, you know, I think that, and that has happened during my tenure as the assistant director. So, you know, I think just supporting that, I'm the one who recruited and hired the asset manager, and he is great. You know, I think that pushing that, continuing to advocate for that, continuing to think of new ways of how to leverage it and utilize it. I mean, again, I'm an engineer, I'm a problem solver, you know, so I've got to be always kind of saying, okay, what's the issue and how do I fix it? I think that's key. You know, a lot of times we get, you know, we get excited and we get amped up about this emergency, we got to take care of it, but it's really following up after the fact. What do we learn from this emergency? How can we implement that to make improvements, and then moving forward, maybe we won't be in that emergency situation anymore. So I think the example I gave earlier is the most recent one I can think about. Is just, you know, I kind of noticed that, you know, we're just kind of over and over getting hit with these concrete sewer lines that are under roadways failing. And concrete is not ideal for a sewer line. You know, as a water resources engineer, that's just not something I would ever install now. But in the past they did. And so we have a lot of that in our system, and that's just a problem that we need to address. And I just don't want to keep waiting for them to fail. I want to be proactively looking for them and inspecting them. And if we can do something up front that's going to cost us a fraction of what the emergency repair would cost, that's a win. So that's really what I think is one of the things that I've achieved.
So yeah, let's expand on that a little bit, because I know it's an ongoing issue. And so here you've identified that, and you put the asset manager in place. And tell me, what do you foresee happening, and how does that impact our overall operation? So now that the asset manager is in place, you'll basically identify assets, et cetera. Will it reduce costs for the cities? Time frame? What type of next steps or decisions are needed? Give me some insight into that.
So as I mentioned, we are in a multi-year strategic asset management plan rollout. So, you know, we worked with a consultant to come up with a strategic asset management plan that was specific to Augusta. You know, all other utilities, you know, are similar, but they're different. So we had to have something that was specific to us, and we're working through the first year of that. So, you know, how we kind of move forward is we continue to work that plan, but we stay flexible. Things change. Ultimately, we want to get to a point where, you know, we have all of our assets mapped. We have all the pertinent information about our assets. We have standard operating procedures on how things are done. And the thing is, an asset management program, I can't just unilaterally make that decision. My asset manager can. It has to involve everybody in the department, because you can put a plan in place, but if people aren't invested in it and they haven't bought into it, they're not going to follow it. So, you know, the real key to it is, you know, involving everybody. And that's what makes it take, you know, longer to kind of implement too, is just making sure you get everybody in there. You get that diverse group of people together, you get them to work together, and you create a plan that works for everybody. So, you know, the real goal is that, you know, we know what all our assets are. We know when they're going, you know, what their lifespan is, when we're going to need to replace them. We're anticipating where, you know, repairs are going to happen due to breaks, you know, and truly staying on top of what the technologies are out there to do that as well. You know, recently I've been looking at, and it was something that kind of dated back to when Tom was here, but we've been looking at machine learning, AI technology on predicting water main breaks. You know, there's a ton of data out there, and there are companies that can take our GIS data and all sorts of GIS data and make very, very accurate predictions on where water mains are going to break in the next year. And so that's a valuable new technology that we've been looking into, and we hope to implement. So just kind of staying on top of those things and trying to keep our utility up to date, and staying aware of what our options are and what's out there.
Understood. So I think as we stay on leadership and we talk about, you know, whether it be you talked a lot about partnership, especially in your current role, being able to coordinate with your peers. Talk to me about how you handle disagreements with those coworkers when, you know, you have some of those challenges. I think now, you know, you'd be moving into the role where your coworkers would actually be those other directors who have completely different service areas that are connected. You know, how do you currently handle disagreements with coworkers? But you could also talk about how you would address those with directors. You can kind of pick which one answering from either perspective would work.
Okay, I think I'll answer it in two parts then. I just, overall, I think handling any sort of conflict in the workplace or in life, the key thing is communication. You have to go into any sort of situation like that with an open mind. You have to be willing to listen and understand where the other person's coming from. If you understand what their goals are, what their concerns are, what they're really worried about, then you can really get down to what's the issue there. So I think just any sort of conflict you have to be open and willing to listen. And I think that's something that I've really definitely had to exercise as I've moved up through the ranks. First as just, those coworker interactions, but also as a leader, I've had to, necessarily sometimes step in when things happen like that and try to help both individuals. So I've been on both sides of that. As a director who has to interact with other directors, I have some relationships with other directors already just because of my role now. But I think, again, I would approach it the same way I would any conflict with anybody is, I'd ask to talk about it. Obviously we can't necessarily sit down in person now, but however we can get together and talk about it and understand, we all run vastly different departments. My goals are not necessarily the same as somebody else's goals. So I really need to be open to hear, okay, what is it that you need to achieve? And what is it I need to achieve? And how can we do that together? You don't have to step on somebody's toes to get something done. You can definitely come to the table and work together on that. I think, one of the departments that we work the closest with, I think on a regular basis would be the engineering department, and I will say that once we had all come together and moved, we didn't always, prior, you may not know this, but we hadn't always been in a building together. Right now we're at the Walker Street building together. I think being in the same location had really helped us grow that relationship with that department. When I became assistant director, I started having AED coordination meetings. We either do it once a month or once a quarter. It just depends on, how much workload. We work together on projects a lot. They have a lot of roadway and drainage projects. Obviously, there are utility conflicts. And when they're going to do a project, it only makes sense for us to go in and evaluate our utilities. Do we need to make upgrades? Because nobody wants to cut a new road in 6 months if a sewer line fails. So that's a really important relationship that we've been building over the years, not just me, but my employees. But I think it's important that the directors show that they can have a relationship so that the employees all the way down the line can work together as well.
Like it, got it. So tell me about the organization a little bit. I mean, tell me how much you know about the organization and its inner workings, and more so, with that knowledge that you have, what kind of changes would you seek to make, if you're able to move into this new role, leveraging that understanding that you have of the organization?
I think I have a great understanding of the organization. I mean, I don't know how anybody else could have much better of one than being here doing it right now. Like I said, since everything that's happened in the last year, I've really worked closer with my counterparts, the other assistant directors, and I've really gotten involved. But honestly, even before that, Tom and I had talked about my future, and it was in his plan for me to have a future as a director of Augusta Utilities. And so he was leading me towards knowing the things that I needed to know about the utility so that I could grow into that role. So, I've been, involved in everything for a long time, even if it was just from an educational level. He would always include me to let me know how things operated. So I know about the people who work here. I know about the regulations and the compliance that we deal with. You know, I know about our system from, I know what our assets we have. I know what's, you know, what our plants, I know all of that. And I know, but I think ultimately I always kind of go back to the people are really important. So the second part of that question you asked was, what kind of changes would I consider making? You know, right off the bat, you know, changes to the overall organization, I think it would just be key to get into the role. I don't think anybody would want to make any major knee-jerk changes. But I think one thing that is good that anybody could focus on, I wouldn't say it's a change, but I think it would just need to be a focus, is again, employee retention, recruiting, succession planning. I think that, you know, it was key before, but now having lost our director, it's even more important. So, you know, there's just going to be a huge turnover in the executive branch. So I think that is going to be a really key area to focus on.
Got it. Okay. And so the process, as we're kind of coming to the end, I actually have one additional question after this question. Of course, that defining statement that we talked about, you know, that you would like both or whether it be the public, the commission, or my office to know, you know, about you as we close out the interview. And then we'll again allow the commission to ask any questions that they might have prior to you closing us out with any questions that you also may have. And so with that, you know, my final question is one, again, that defining statement or before that defining statement is kind of your unique position statement, I guess we'll call it. What makes you the unique and best fit for this role at this time?
I think at this time, it's because I'm here. You know, I'm an employee of Augusta Utilities. I'm on a daily basis doing a lot of the things that I will need to do as a director. I think, you know, my current knowledge of the utility, of the people, my relationships with the people, you know, I believe I have strong relationships with our employees. I think that's what truly makes me unique for this position. You know, I would think that anybody who has made it to this point has proven themselves technically. I think it's those extra skills. I think it's that extra interpersonal skills, but also that hands-on, that specific job experience that I have here with Augusta Utilities that I believe would set me apart.
Got it. Great answer. So with that, I think, you know, again, you've got a very attentive and engaged commission, especially when it comes, you know, with Augusta's operations. And no secret here that the public is watching today. You know, is there a closing statement that you would like to make?
I would just like to say that, you know, I'm committed to Augusta Utilities and the CSRA. You know, I have a background, a technical background, and I think that I have the knowledge that I need. But again, I think that you have to be, you can get the smartest, most technical person in the world in here, but if they don't have the people skills, the soft skills that they need to be able to run a department and work with that diverse group of people, that, you know, that you may be setting someone up for failure. So I think I have that great combination. And, you know, again, this is my career choice. So I'm here in public service. This is what I want to do. So I'll be here to support Augusta Utilities regardless, but I really do hope you consider me. And if you have any other questions for me, I'm definitely open to answering any questions you have.
Absolutely. And so with that, our commission, of course, has been watching and listening and diligently taking notes. And so I will defer to any of our members who have additional questions for Ms. Corbin. And if you do, feel free to unmute and ask your questions as you please.
I'm going to ask real quick. Good morning. Well, good afternoon, Marie Corbin. Nice having you here. You said how many years have you been with Augusta Utilities?
I've been with Augusta Utilities for 5.5 years now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm going to ask you this question. It's the same question that I asked everyone. So don't be offended. but this is a question that many inquiring minds would like to know. Will you perform your duties for Augusta and disavow any and all special interest influence?
Of course. I mean, ultimately, I think that, like I told you, I have personal and professional integrity. I'm here to serve the citizens of Augusta, Richmond County. I'm here to make the best choices for them. You know, I've been with the AUD for 5.5 years. I can't say that I have any other special interests, so to speak, other than just doing my job to the best of my ability. So, of course.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
If there are any additional questions of the commission? What we'll do is similar to as we go through these, if we don't hear any additional questions, we will give a short pause, Ms. Corbin, so that if there are any additional questions, the commission may ask them. After that brief pause, if we don't hear any, feel free to hop in with any questions that you might have, either for the commission, myself, human resources, or about the process, or anything else that you might have questions about, okay?
Okay.
And so hearing none, feel free to proceed with any questions that you might have.
Well, I had a question, and we discussed this in my previous interview, administrator. But the question I had, you know, is if I were selected for the assistant director, I mean for the AUD director, what are some of the maybe challenges or problem areas that the commissioners might want me to jump right on? I guess I'm just trying to get a head start, so to speak. So are there any, you know, I think I believe I know some of them, but is there anything that you might want to share with me that you are going to want the new director to get right on top of?
Great question. Commission, feel free to kind of hop in as you please by simply just unmuting and asking, you know, informally, just hop in as you please.
Good morning, Ms. Corbin. Commissioner Ben Hassan.
How are you?
First and foremost, thank you for applying for the job. It's good to know that we have personnel inside the organization who feel they have the capability and qualified to rise to that level. So we were commended for you for throwing your head in the ring, and we wish you well in that regard. But at the same time, I like the fact that you realize that we're an old city and we have some aging infrastructure, and like the fact that you think that's important and to be mindful of that and try to get ahead of it as much as you possibly can. But also, I like the fact that you made mention that, you know, in terms of sewer, expanding the sewer in terms of for potential future growth and development. So it's not so much I have a question for you as much as I think those matters are important at the end of the day, and just want to commend you for highlighting those in your overall presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, this is Brandon Garrett. I've got a comment to go along with that. Sorry, I'm not on the video. I'm actually driving, so don't hold that against me. But anyway, in regards to things that we want to see a director jump on, of course, the infrastructure issues in the South Richmond County area, are vitally important to many of us, as well as those over in East Augusta with the ongoing drainage. And I know that takes some coordination with engineering as well. So that is definitely something that I want to see a push for in the near future, as well as helping to come up with just a game plan to implement and continue to push forward. I know that there's been numerous plans put forth of implementing sewage in the southern parts of Richmond County, but funding was always an issue, and there was never really a plan that was put in place and held to in order to make sure that really became a reality. So that's definitely my top thing that I want to see happen, as well as I want to continue to see employees trained. I want to see them be given career paths so they can improve themselves. Definitely don't want to be put in a situation like we were with Tom leaving unexpectedly, kind of avoid the field. We want to be able to have people that are right behind that are able to step in at a moment's notice. So those are definitely important things to me.
Thank you so much.
So with that, Ms. Corbin, did you have any additional questions for either the commission, administrator's office, or specifically for HR?
No, that was everything. I just wanted to take the time to thank you all for this opportunity. I appreciate your time today, and you know, no matter what happens, I'm committed to Augusta Utilities. But I do thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, I'll tell you, prior to turning it over to the commission as we close out, as a new administrator or executive leader here in Augusta, it's been a pleasure, having you as a part of this process, and always excited to see internal people willing to step up to the plate. And also, I think it's a great testament, not only for you, but the staff level and quality that we have here in Augusta. And that's a very big deal, and it's very encouraging to me. So I appreciate you, not only participating in the process, but stepping up to help us lead on behalf of our citizens. And so with that, I will defer to the commission, who I'm sure would like to say goodbye before we close out this interview.
Good afternoon. It was a pleasure to have an opportunity to listen to you, Ms. Corbin, and wish you well in the process in terms of the decision that we finally made. But once again, it was a pleasure listening to you. It's always good to have someone internally applying for these positions as we move forward and advancing throughout the organization.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure listening to you this morning, and look forward to seeing you out there sooner or later.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Marie, I just want to tell you I appreciate you applying and for the interview today, as well as for all the help you've been in the last few months. I know that I've bothered you quite a few times with issues that arise, so I do appreciate that.
No problem. You've got my phone number. You know how to get in touch with me. Thank you. All right. Well, thank y'all very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so, commissioners, for today's interviews, that selects those that have been provided. I believe that most of these personnel actions, recommendations, and next steps would occur during the next upcoming legal session or beyond, based on the will of the commission. And so with that, if there are no additional comments, I would close out today's interviews.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.